articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump will be voted on by members of the House Judiciary Committee. Live coverage of the impeachment hearings begins right now. Good morning, folks. Thanks for joining us here on Nexstar's Live, continuing coverage of the impeachment hearings of President Donald Trump. Today is the day when the Judiciary Committee could vote on the two articles of impeachment. In fact, we do expect that vote to take place. Here's what the format will look like today. There will be statements made by the chairman of the committee, Representative Jerry Nadler, and the ranking member, Representative Doug Collins. Then each of the members of the committee, 41 in total, will get to talk about their votes on this articles of impeachment, and then they will be voted on one by one. Each time, every member of the committee will get to talk about the articles, and then they will take a vote. So we expect a morning full of discussion about the first article of impeachment, abuse of power, and then the afternoon we'll likely discuss the second article of impeachment, obstruction of Congress. My name is Evan Donovan. I am the political anchor here for Nexstar. Let's bring in JB Buno, the digital anchor. And JB, last night, opening statements from all of the members of the committee. We heard some very interesting opening statements, and we expect to see a lot more partisan rancor today, as this is the day when they will actually vote on these two articles.
Yeah, it was a late night last night. For those of you that stayed up late with us, welcome back. We're back at it again here on Capitol Hill this morning. Let's actually take a live picture here, everybody, of Capitol Hill so you can see what's currently going on, as we are, as you see in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen, about 14 minutes away from getting started here in this morning's proceedings. For those of you asking, I went to bed a little bit early last night, or if maybe after dinner you didn't pay attention to what actually took place yesterday on Capitol Hill, the short of it all is you didn't miss very much contextually. It was just a lot of procedural sort of set up for today, 5 minutes per member to talk a little bit about the articles of impeachment, but it didn't really focus very much on the articles of impeachment. It was usually 5 minutes talking about how Republicans either think this is a sham process or Democrats think that this is a constitutional imperative to move forward with articles of impeachment.
Yeah, and those articles are right here. I encourage everyone to read them. It's not too much, actually only about 9 pages. The articles, only 2 of them. And they are quite broad. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. A lot of people on the right don't believe that they are specific enough. For the first time out of the 4 impeachment proceedings that have begun in United States history, they do not include any actual crimes, as in defined crimes. They instead are listed primarily under high crimes and misdemeanors, which is a phrase that is intentionally left to be broad by the founders, and that's because they wanted those possible crimes to be administered by later generations, and that's what we see here. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress are the 2 articles of impeachment that have been drawn up by Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee. Of course, a lot of opposition from the Republicans on the committee, and we heard a lot about that last night. I want to bring in some sound bites from last night in case you didn't get a chance to see. The opening statement started last night about 7 o'clock in the evening, and they began with the chairman of the committee, Representative Jerry Nadler of New York. Nadler famously was around in the House 20 years ago during the impeachment of President Bill Clinton, and said back then that he doesn't believe there should be partisan impeachments. Those comments have come back to bite him, as so far this inquiry has been partisan in terms of Democratic support. No Republicans have supported it. Of course, Democrats argue that that is a more of a representative of where we are as a country right now in our partisan divide than it is of the actual crimes in their mind that the president has committed, or the improprieties as they have put into these articles of impeachment. Let's play for you right now a clip from Representative Jerry Nadler's opening statement last night.
Today, we begin consideration of 2 articles of impeachment against President Donald J. Trump. The first article charges that the president used the powers of his public office to demand that a foreign government attack his political rivals. The second article charges that the president obstructed the congressional investigation into his conduct. Other presidents have resisted congressional oversight, but President Trump's stonewall was complete, absolute, and without precedent in American history. Taken together, the 2 articles charge President Trump with placing his private political interests above our national security, above our free and fair elections, and above our ability to hold public officials accountable.
And that's Representative Jerry Nadler there reading out what the two articles of impeachment were. And I want to get a little bit more specific for those of you who are just joining us. Again, you're watching Nexstar's live continuing coverage of the impeachment hearings of President Donald Trump. Evan Donovan, political anchor here for Nexstar, and JB Buno to the left part of your screen, our digital anchor. The two articles are on obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. They're actually listed in reverse order from that. Abuse of power is first. And here's what Democrats allege in the articles. President Trump engaged in a scheme or course of conduct through the following means: acting both directly and through his agents within and outside the U.S. government, corruptly soliciting the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations into a political opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, and a discredited theory promoted by Russia alleging that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. With the same corrupt motives, President Trump, acting both directly through his agents within and outside the U.S. government, conditioned two official acts on the public announcements that he requested. A, the release of nearly $400 million of United States taxpayer funds that Congress had appropriated on a bipartisan basis for the purpose of providing vital military and security assistance to Ukraine to oppose Russian aggression, and which President Trump had ordered suspended. And B, a head of state meeting at the White House, which the president of Ukraine sought to demonstrate continued U.S. support for the government of Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. The Democrats are arguing that the president is actually continuing in this behavior, and that once he was caught and the military aid was released, that the fact that he was caught is the only reason why he released that aid. They also allege in a little bit of language in this article of impeachment that he continues to invite foreign interference into the elections, citing both his request for Russia to hack emails and become a part of the 2016 election, which actually ended up happening, as well as publicly soliciting Ukraine and China to interfere in the 2020 presidential election in conversations with reporters outside the White House after these revelations of the whistleblower's complaint became public. Let's go to Ranking Member Doug Collins' opening statement from last night, as you're taking a live look at the Judiciary Committee right now, about 8 minutes away from when we expect these hearings to resume. But I want you to listen to Doug Collins' statement from last night. Of course, he has been fighting back against these impeachment articles, claiming that they are happening too quickly, that they are thin, that there wasn't enough time developed into them, and that they don't include any crimes in particular.
After a year of trashing this institution, a year of trying to trash this administration and this president, we come up with abuse of power and can't define it. We come up with obstruction of Congress after 72 days. I know they're desperate. You know how I know it? Adam Schiff's own words yesterday. We can't go to court. That would take too long. An election is coming. Let me finish the last part of that sentence. He liked to put words into President Trump's mouth when he faked the call transcript. No, Adam, what you need to continue to say is, we can't beat him next year. The only thing we need is a 30-second commercial saying we impeached him. That's the wrong reason to impeach somebody, and the American people are seeing through this.
And that is, of course, the danger here for Democrats. And the reason why many of them, including Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, said that she was not in favor of impeachment for a long time because she believed that it could be damaging politically. Of course, we won't know whether that's true until we get to November, but that is a danger for Democrats, that this process will be viewed as too partisan, that it will motivate Republicans to come out and vote in November of 2020, and that President Trump will be reelected in a landslide. Because, JB, even if the Judiciary Committee votes along party lines to send these articles of impeachment to the full House, which is what we expect to happen later today, of course, not a guarantee, but everyone who's a political watcher kind of knows that's what is likely to happen. Even if he is impeached and the full House votes to impeach him, that will be sent to the trial in the Senate, and it is extremely unlikely that President Trump would be removed from office by the Senate because 2/3 of senators would have to vote for him there, and Democrats don't even hold the majority.
Right, and Senator Mitch McConnell, according to various reports, considering a Republican-led vote to perhaps dismiss charges and acquit President Donald Trump. Those reports, of course, surfacing, I believe, into yesterday evening. And for those of you who missed some of the action last night, remember, this is a continuation of what took place yesterday or last night on Capitol Hill in this very hearing. This is part 2 of this 2-part hearing that is supposed to culminate with the Judiciary Committee here voting on articles of impeachment. Evan, obviously, we can't get to sound bites of every member on the committee, but
sure.
I have a couple of notes here from last night, some interesting, just short quotes from some of the representatives who spoke. We all know Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Pretty much every time he speaks, he is commanding the attention of the national media. He is calling this a quote-unquote hot garbage impeachment. That's from Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congresswoman Lesko calling this a corrupt, rigged railroad job, the most corrupt, rigged railroad job I've ever seen. And then Florida Congresswoman Val Demings saying that the only option that they have, that Democrats have, is to hold this president accountable. And that is consistent with the theme of many Democrats here on the committee, saying that they have been left with no choice, that this was their hand has been forced, that this is something that they absolutely have to do, a constitutional mandate that this branch of Congress, the House Judiciary Committee, has to hold the executive branch, the White House, accountable for their actions, of course, specifically being Donald Trump. Again, everybody, we are less than 5 minutes away here from getting started. In the center of your screen there, you see a live picture from the Judiciary Committee. Again, 4.5 minutes away or so from getting underway, and we expect there to be some more debate, and I think a vote soon after.
And before we get to that, JB, we're still waiting to hear from President Donald Trump through the medium that he most often chooses, which is his Twitter account. So far, no tweets directly from the president this morning. He's only been retweeting other Republicans, but he did speak, and I think we have a soundbite from him, JB.
Yeah, I think we're going to hold on a second here, Evan. I think that we are going to get to the president's soundbite from the Hershey rally, but I think what we're going to try to do is bring in our D.C. Bureau correspondent, Trevor Shirley. We're just lining up his shot here, and I believe that we have Trevor now. Hey there, Trevor. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. What's the latest on Capitol Hill, and what are we expecting this morning?
So we're still waiting for that markup hearing to resume. They started it last night. They're going to continue that this morning. Once they wrap that up for the day and vote on the articles of impeachment, then that'll punt it over to the House, and we could be looking at a House vote, a full House vote on this sometime early to mid next week.
And Trevor, Evan Donovan here joining you. Thanks again for you coming on our live stream of the impeachment hearings. Trevor, we expect after today, if the articles are voted on and sent to the full House, there would be a Rules Committee hearing first. Is that correct?
Potentially, yes. How that whole process, it's not exactly clear how that's going to work, but once it's set up or once it's voted on by the House, then it'll be punted over to the Senate where the trial will happen.
Yeah, that's right, and we expect that to happen next month, which obviously gets a little complicated when we talk about the campaign trail in 2020 being a political campaign year. The Iowa caucus is on February 3rd, so things happen pretty quickly when we come back from the break there. Trevor, a lot of other things going on Capitol Hill this week as well, though. The USMCA, an agreement was reached there, the NDAA, and we still have the continuing resolution that's sitting out there. The government only funded through midnight next Friday.
That's right, and USMCA was a big deal, especially for Democrats, because they've really been trying to push the idea that they're not just consumed with impeachment. Democratic leadership really wanted to get that deal passed so that they could show their constituents, hey, look, we're not just doing impeachment, we're getting other things done. But the continuing resolution, the spending bill, is also going to be something that a lot of people are watching because, as you mentioned, government funding runs out next Friday.
And Trevor, I know you have to leave us in just a moment here, but there will be some breaks today for votes, correct? For the members of the committee to go out and vote on other issues?
Yeah, they will be able to come and go from the conference as they need, or from the hearing as they need to vote on other issues.
Okay, great. Trevor Shirley joining us from our D.C. Bureau. Thank you so much, Trevor. I know you have to leave us. I appreciate you dropping in for just a few. That is excellent. And again, we will be here with you throughout the day here. We hope to have Trevor back or perhaps another reporter from our D.C. Bureau, depending on the time. Obviously, things get complicated here because we don't know exactly when they will be taking breaks out of the Judiciary Committee here. But you are taking a live look inside the committee hearing room right now. Representative Jerry Nadler with the red tie on the left part of your screen behind all the media there, taking his seat, and Representative Doug Collins, the ranking member, Republican, seated to his left.
Real
on
quick,
your
Evan, I know
screen,
that
right.
we're less than a minute away. Let's get to that soundbite really briefly from President Trump a couple of nights ago at the rally in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Today, the House Democrats announced these two flimsy, pathetic, ridiculous articles of impeachment. The House Democrats are walking back from everything they claimed with today's announcement. They're now admitting there was no collusion, there was no obstruction of justice, and there were no crimes whatsoever. There are no crimes.
President Donald Trump refuting the articles of impeachment right there. There are no crimes as defined by federal statute included in the articles of impeachment, but obviously the Constitution is not written in a way that it has to be crimes. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress fit within high crimes and misdemeanors, and that is the argument that Democrats are making, that that the Constitution was written in such a way that presidents should be able to be held accountable on the checks and balances that our government affords through the three branches, and that's what they are attempting to do today. We will see in just a few minutes and a few hours here whether or not they actually vote to send the articles of impeachment to the full House. So today, we're going to hear from the members. They will then take a vote on each article of impeachment separately. That would then trigger a full House vote on both articles if both articles are sent to the full House. And so look today to hear about each one of these articles individually. Then they will take a vote on it, and then they'll go to the second article, which is obstruction of Congress.
And the numbers to remember here, everybody, if there are two numbers you should remember today, it's 24 and 17. Those are two numbers that you should really keep in mind because that's the number of Democrats and Republicans on the committee. So as Evan notes here, when we hear the votes on each individual article and roll call is called and then they ask for the final tally on these votes, if you hear 24-17, you know it was right along party lines. Now, if it's anything other than 24-17, Evan, I would imagine it being quite a surprise and actually, frankly, a shocker.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it has happened before. It certainly could happen today. I'm not sure that we would see that in the committee. More likely that we would see that in a full House vote, that it's possible some members of each party might vote against where their party is. Representative Jerry Nadler kicking off the hearings. Let's go to Capitol Hill right now.
Yesterday, it had completed opening statements